So we are back with another video of things that changed my life, and I wanted to do this for fighting games. And what I mean by this is, rather than going over just one, I wanted to have this allude to something bigger towards the end of the video. And I think because of my first one with the Sega Superstars Tennis, I now have an idea of what exactly I want to portray in these videos, kinda. So maybe this will make a little bit more sense than my previous one. And I think a good place to start is probably starting from, well, my first ever fighting game, which was Tekken 2. And I remember this because I remember that me and my older brother, because he had a PlayStation, and at this point in time, I was only allowed to have a Game Boy. So when I saw Tekken, I was like, oh, okay, this looks cool. And I remembered the first character that I ever picked was Lei Wulong, and we played on the skyscraper stage. Don't ask me why this was like a pivotal moment in my life, but it is something that I just remember. Quite frankly, after I played that, I did not play a fighting game for quite a while until I had gone to a Toys R Us with one of my mum's friends and my mum. Also, I'm just going to give a little shout out to my mother and my sister because the day I am recording this is actually my mum's birthday, and it's my sister's birthday 2 days before that, so I am going to use that as a base for this. But back to the story. My mother was looking at all the games for me because usually she would look at the games with me and we'd look together and then would decide what I'd be getting, because, you know, getting a game back then, oh my god, it's same back then, I feel so old, but back when they were like GBAs, and so she had seen Street Fighter 2, I think it was Hyper Fighting, or it was a special sort of edition for the Game Boy Advance, and so she was like, oh, you have to buy this, you have to play this. There was another game I received during this trip, but we will save that for another day because that is also a plan in the future. And so that is essentially how my journey with Street Fighter had gotten started. I don't think long after that, the Xbox had came out. If you remember my previous video, I said I had an Xbox Crystal, and on this, I had received 3 games that were pretty pivotal for me as well. I received Soul Calibur 2, Street Fighter, I think it was the 15th anniversary collection. Then we also had Mortal Kombat, which this was a very similar story to how my brother Denzel, I saw him playing it when I would stay at my dad sometimes, and he would play Shaolin Monks. And that really, when I saw it, I was like, I really wanted to play too. And I ended up playing that with my neighbor. I think we got about halfway, but then we never really got much further. And Dead or Alive Ultimate, which was a like combined edition where it had Dead or Alive 1 and Dead or Alive 2. Starting off with Street Fighter in this sort of age was pretty interesting because the anniversary edition gave me Third Strike, and then it gave me every edition of Street Fighter 2, and it also had the Street Fighter 2 movie in it as well, which I really enjoyed, and I definitely think that helped me decide a little bit more towards what characters I really liked design wise. For me, playing the game, Cammy and Chun-Li were sort of like the ones for me. And then when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, I actually really like Vega as well. And then I had Third Strike as well, which, I mean, this is definitely when I started to see that I had a type when it came to characters. There were definitely 4 specific ones that I played, especially once they got to Street Fighter 4 and 5. But I definitely think this gave slight influence in certain places. And I just want to interject on this section because, like I said before, around this time when I was this young, I did get to see my brothers quite a bit as well, and my cousins, and they had a PlayStation where I had an Xbox. And this is where I got to like find out about like the demo discs that they had, because the Xbox, at least what I was looking for, the magazines I was getting, because I was getting Nintendo magazines rather than like standard gaming magazines at the time. A lot of these magazines used to give you demo discs for different games, and they had this demo disc for a game that I hadn't seen in quite a while, and which was Tekken. But this was Tekken 4, and to this day, I still think Tekken 4 is one of the best Tekkens. I don't care what anyone says competitively. The vibe, the music was definitely better than, I'd say, first 3, and then I'd probably even say base 5 as well. And then for the UK listeners, You may remember Woolworths, and this was around the time where the Xbox 360 had come out. I remember seeing the Dead or Alive 4 cover box, like the box art for it, and because I could never find free, I had no idea where to find free. But Dead or Alive 4, I remember seeing the cover art, and I was like, oh my god, everyone looks so good. Like, it looks like a complete step up, and I guess that is what would happen when you play 2 and didn't play 3, and then you see 4, and you're like, holy shit, they look crazy. Like, I don't know what it was. Everyone looked elevated. To this day, I still think Dead or Alive 4 is one of the better Dead or Alives out there. 5 was fine. I just didn't enjoy it that much. And also think about this as well. During this time, internet access wasn't really something that I had. I think I only started to get the internet around late 2010. So for me, it's like if I wanted to see if they had a game or if I was looking for new games, I had to just go to the store and see what they had. Sort of moving back to Mortal Kombat or generally any of these fighting games, that was how I saw what was coming out, either through these magazines or by just directly going to the stores and seeing what was there, because usually they'd have like previews for like, oh, this is going to be out at this date, come back when it's around. When it came to Mortal Kombat, the only Mortal Kombat that I was playing from this point was Armageddon, and I was playing Armageddon on the Wii.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
And then moved over to the 360 when I did eventually get it. I didn't have a fighting game until I played at a cousin's house, and this was Street Fighter 4. I was very happy to see Vega back. I was very happy to see a lot of characters back, but I was like, who are all of these people? There's a lot of new characters, and there was a lot for me to learn as well, because I was really starting to understand fighting games a little bit more now that I was a little bit older. Another thing is that during this point in time, even though I had internet access through a dongle because I had a laptop, I did not have internet access through my game consoles and all that. So I was never playing online. So Xbox Live was like, I remember when I first got the Xbox 360 and they gave you like those little arcade game discs that came with like these little pamphlets that had like two months of like Xbox Live for free. I didn't know what Xbox Live was. So I was just like, oh, very cool. I actually still have the pamphlet. And it never worked years later. But yeah, that was never something that I had. But I was always sort of able to keep up with the competitive scene a little bit, because I was like, oh, okay, so this is what playing this game well looks like. But without that competitive edge and with zero friends to really play anything with at the time, there wasn't really a big reason for me to continue playing a lot of these games. I would essentially just do what I do now, where I go into practice mode, or I'll do a lot of the solo content. And Soul Calibur 4 and 5, well, not so much 5, but 4 was really good for doing that because you got a whole lot of costumes for your creator character, which was so much fun. Please improve on that, Soul Calibur, if we get a 7th one. I doubt it though, because 6 kind of flopped. So because of that, I actually started to take a really long break from fighting games. And not to mention, the laser in my Xbox 360 had actually scratched my Street Fighter disc so badly, you know, like when it does it in a full circle, that I couldn't actually play it. And then when Ultra came out and I saw that Elena was in the game, that was when I was like, okay, I think it's time to get back in here, because around this time I had full-on internet. I just wasn't using my Xbox at the time because I was a full Nintendo gamer at this point. So like Wii, DS, 3DS, this is what I was doing. And I remember that I was like, I didn't understand how the editions worked, so I just assumed it was like an update and then I would get everyone. That was not the case. So when I went to Smith's toy store and they had like a little disc repair station, you'd go to the bit and you'd give them the disc and they'd do it for you. And then I inserted Super Street Fighter. I'm not smart. I had a feeling that all the characters, like all the new characters, were just going to be in there, you know, Yin, Yang, all that. And that was not the case. I couldn't have been more wrong. And then I found out about the practice of DLC, which made me very upset for a long time, and even still does to this day. And so now, with everything sort of sorted, I was playing a lot of these games online. The main games that I played online were Dead or Alive 4, which I used Kasumi and Ayane to, I think, because they always had like a grading system. I had gotten to like A rank, which was pretty high up. And I remember I made like one friend since I like played, and I was just like, oh, okay, so this is what playing online is like. This feels really good. And then I played Street Fighter 4 a lot as well, and there was an old video, I'll see if I can like retrieve it, where it actually showed off my rank. I was pretty high at that time, but I remember I played it for a couple of months and then I stopped. But in this point in time, I was kind of convinced that I would probably try and do something with competitive fighting games. I sort of lost slight interest in that. I don't enjoy competing all that much now. I did a few like online, like I'd take part in like online streams where they had tournaments sometimes, but this wasn't for Street Fighter or for any of the games that I had played. Around this time, which I think was 2014, I think it was early 2015, 2014, I had actually found anime fighting games, and these were starting to pull my attention because Xbox 360 had BlazBlue Continuum Shift, and boy, it was a deep dark hole from there on. I remember like one thing that also fueled it was that I had gone to Comic-Con that year. I think it was my first ever Comic-Con, and me and my friend Maya, we actually got to play Under Night In Birth and Arcana Hearts 3 Love Mechs. I was like, okay, this is something I really want to get into. And so I was like, all right. And so I was like, I tried really hard to sort of find a whole bunch of anime fighting games at the time. And yeah, I was just like, this is something that I think I want to work towards. Not so much the competitive side, but also like just making one. I was really interested in trying to find out how I could make one and if I had the skills to do that. Spoiler warning, that has not happened yet. During this time, I actually had the opportunity to meet someone who ended up being one of my best friends in life. And so this is essentially what I was alluding to from the beginning of the video. This was someone who I really connected with because he was much more acquainted with anime fighting games than I was. And so I told him that my big thing was that I wanted to create one. And so we made plans and we played so many fighting games to sort of understand what we wanted to do. And I even still have like a whole bunch of notes for what I want, even to this day. But in 2016, and just remember this was someone who I had met around late 2014, they had passed away very close to, I think it was the 16th of November 2016. And you know, when this is someone who in your mind is essentially the best person, the like number one person who had connected to you, the only one who you ever kind of saw face to face with 100% on things. And not to mention, like I said earlier, I did not have friends for a large majority. Like I didn't have a lot of friends who I could speak to outside of school and that sort of thing. So when he passed, obviously that provided its own sort of struggles and challenges. And I would definitely say, you know, sometimes you look back at these relationships and you go, you know, I don't have any videos, I don't have any pictures. And you think to yourself, was it even real? Essentially, this person was the reason why I am here today making videos now, because I have made a big thing of trying to sort of just have and create a moment where it's like, we were here. And even this year, there has been another friend that has passed away, and I'm so glad that I have had footage of just us playing and just being together and just like having a good time, because you know, sometimes that is just what you need. You just need that moment to be like, this was a real thing and this was real, and I'm glad that I have that. It makes me feel good knowing that I'm able to put that out there, that this is the reason that why this is all here right now in this moment. And you know, of course, it is very hard moving forward, but even to this day, it is my main goal to really have that fighting game come to life at some point. I don't know when it will happen, since I have spent the past 2 years improving my video editing skills, because that was what my job was and it's what my job is. I understand that this video probably may have taken a bit of a somber turn with that previous bit, but this whole relationship of me with fighting games has led me to meet so many cool people along the way, and other YouTubers who do similar things as well, which is why I wanted to highlight this sort of thing in this sort of topic. Like I said before, I didn't really know what I wanted this sort of series to be, of, you know, things that changed my life, but I really wanted to sort of imbue my personal life into this sort of thing, because this was, this is my life. This is a big part of just me. And so I understand that I probably haven't, I haven't gone over every fighting game that I've ever played, but this is the reason why I love fighting games so much. This relationship and, has put me here in this position. But I think that is where I'm going to end this video. I feel like I've done a good job of what I want to portray. And I think if I want to do a certain fighting game, or maybe a certain series of fighting games, or just video games in general, I would do that. But I think these broader topics or these broader genres like this one is going to be more towards these sort of things. But that's it for now. You've reached the end of the video and hopefully you liked it. If you didn't, tell me that you didn't in the comments, or just dislike it. I don't know, I don't care. If you want to support me, I have a Patreon that will be in the description below. And I think that's all. I will see you in the next video.